Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. Welcome back to EnglishClass101.com's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about the difference between speak and talk, two commonly confused verbs. So let's get started. Okay, the first verb I want to talk about is the verb talk. We use talk in casual speech, in everyday conversations. If you want to talk about a simple topic or a casual discussion with friends, or you just want to report a conversation that happened or a discussion that happened, you can use talk to explain this simply and casually. In most everyday conversations, I use talk. You'll hear talk a lot when you are listening to conversations about discussions on the phone. We use it to explain phone conversations a lot. We use it to explain simple meetings with people, friendly interactions over coffee, for example. Talk is used in most everyday situations. So if you're reporting on something that's pretty casual, you should use the word talk to explain that. Also, if the person you are talking to is not someone who you have a professional relationship with, it's pretty good to use talk in that case. If you use speak, you might sound a little too formal. We're going to talk about this in just a moment though. So please try to keep in mind that talk should be used in everyday conversations, to report everyday conversations, and in more casual situations. Okay, we can also use talk, the verb talk, with to or with. By this I mean we can say, I want to talk to someone, or I want to talk with someone. These are, for me, very, very similar. We use them in very similar ways. If you want to be extremely specific, I would say that perhaps there is a small nuance of a difference between talk to and talk with. If I say I want to talk to someone, maybe it could be a more one-sided conversation. Like, I want to talk to my friend. I expect my friend is going to talk to me as well, but I feel like that has a little more of a one-sided conversation feel than using talk with. If I say I want to talk with my friend, I want to talk with you about it, with to me sounds a little bit more like doing something together with someone else. So again, this is a very, very small difference, and perhaps this is just my style and how I like to use these words. But for the most part, we can use them interchangeably. We can use them in the same way. And you're not going to really have any communication problems depending on the word you choose. But just for your information, this is how I sometimes use to and with the verb talk, and with speak too, as I'll explain later. Okay, finally, about conjugations for the verb talk. To make the past tense of the verb talk, talk is an start again. Okay, finally, about conjugations with the verb talk. To conjugate the verb talk into the past tense and the past participle, we simply add ed to the end of the verb. So talk becomes talked. This makes past tense and past participle. So a very easy conjugation for the verb talk. So we're going to use this in some example sentences later. Let's take a look though at the verb speak. Okay. So we talked about how the verb talk is used in more casual situations, everyday conversations, everyday discussions. Speak, however, is used in more formal situations. If you want to create a more formal nuance or to have a more formal tone when you speak with someone, use the verb speak. So I just used the verb speak to sound a little bit more formal in this explanation, for example. If you would like to sound a little more formal, try using the verb speak instead of the verb talk. This is really useful in business situations, at work. You can use this in business emails as well, or in any kind of writing where you would like to sound a little more formal. This is more polite than talk, as you might have guessed. So talk has a more casual nuance, speak has a more formal nuance about it. As with talk, we can use this with to or with. So speak to someone or speak with someone. I want to speak to my boss. I want to speak with my boss. Like I talked about with talk, We can use the two pretty much in the same way, very, very similarly. I would say there's a very small nuance again. Talk to might sound a little bit more one-sided. One person is reporting information, perhaps, and with perhaps sounds more like an exchange of information. But again, this is a very small difference and perhaps just a way that I think about how to use to and with these verbs. But you can use them essentially in the same way. Speak to or speak with someone. Finally, there's one other key difference between speak and talk, and that is about languages. When you are explaining your language ability, for example, I speak English, I speak Japanese, I don't speak Chinese, we should always use the verb speak. Please don't use the verb talk to explain your language abilities. So a sentence like I talk French is not correct. Please use I speak French. Speak is the correct verb to talk about your language abilities or to talk about your inability as well. So please be careful there. Lastly, a couple conjugation points about this verb then. So speak in the past tense, speak is an irregular verb. Speak becomes spoke in the past tense, spoke. So please be careful here. Also, to make the past participle form, speak becomes spoken. Have you spoken to someone? I've never spoken with someone. So there are two conjugations we need to consider for today's practice. Spoke and spoken. Past tense and past participle tense. Okay, so now that we reviewed a couple points about the difference between talk and speak, let's take a look at a few example sentences and maybe we can decide which verb is a better choice in each of these. Okay. First one, he's something something to his manager. Our hint word here is the word manager. This implies it's a work situation, so it's probably a good idea to sound a little more formal. Let's use spoke, past tense. He spoke to his manager. Of course, you could say he speaks to his manager, but we don't have much other information here. So maybe a simple sentence, he spoke to his manager, is nice. Let's see, the next one, you should blah, blah, blah to your parents. So here we have parents and also you should. This kind of gives us the feeling that this sentence is maybe a casual advice situation. So how about talk? It sounds more casual, so talk sounds better. You should talk to your parents. Again, talk with your parents is also okay here. All right, let's look at the next sentence. Haven't they blah, blah, blah to you about this? So here we have haven't, have not, a negative form here. Haven't they blah, blah, blah to you about this? In this sentence, there's no clear hint word. Is it a casual situation? Is it a formal situation? So in a sentence like this, because we don't have enough information about the situation, both talk and speak are actually okay. But we do need to conjugate the verb correctly so that it matches this haven't at the beginning of the sentence. So we can say, haven't they talked to you or haven't they spoken to you about this? Both are correct in this case. Haven't they talked to you? Haven't they spoken to you? It just changes the level of formality of the sentence. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one. I really wanted to something something to you. Again, it's a little bit difficult to determine, is this a formal situation or a casual situation? I would guess I've included the word really here. Typically, really is only used in casual situations, or it's better to use a word like really in less formal situations. So I think that talk is a better choice here. I really wanted to talk to you. Nice. All right, next one. She's something something with clients at the moment. So here the hint is clients, indicating it's a business situation or a more formal situation. And here we have the grammar she is. She is. This implies a progressive or a continuous grammar sentence. So she's something something. Clients gives us the hint it's more formal. Let's use speak. But again, to change it to the progressive form, she's speaking with clients at the moment. Sounds nice. Okay, let's look at the next sentence then. What were they, blah, 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 with that guy about? Okay, so here I've used with, again, we can use to or with, but I've included guy as a hint word here. Guy sounds a little bit more casual. We use guy in maybe more casual discussions, everyday discussions. So we probably want to use talk in this case, a more casual choice. Here we see it's past. What were they, something, something, with that guy about? But we know this should be a past progressive tense sentence too. What were they? This indicates something continuing. What were they talking with that guy about? What were they talking with that guy about? Great. All right. Next one, you guys should have blah, blah, blah about it last week. Again, we see this you guys, implying something more casual. You guys should have. So again, this is probably a sentence where we need to use the verb talk because it's a more casual situation. We could use the verb speak if you like, but again, it's going to sound a little more formal. Here we have you guys, which sounds casual. So mixing casual and formal might sound a little strange. So here, to match our grammar, you guys should have talked about it last week is the nice sentence here. Okay, let's look at the last one then. She's never, blah, 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 to me. So she's, this is an interesting contraction. Be careful. It's not she is never. Never is a big hint here, yeah? We know that never, we use never a lot in present perfect tense sentences. So she's here does not mean she is. Instead, this is the contracted form of she has. So here, she has never something something to me. In this sentence, we don't know if it's a casual or a formal expression, so we can choose either verb. So, she has never talked to me is correct, or she has never spoken to me. She's never talked to me, she's never spoken to me. Both are correct, just depending on the situation and depending on the nuance you would like to communicate, you can choose the better form or the better verb accordingly. So these are a few cases where speak and talk, it might be a good idea to choose one or the other. But I would recommend just keep in mind if you want to sound more formal, please choose the verb speak. If you want to sound a little more casual, use the verb talk. In most cases, we will use the verb talk, but maybe at work it's a good idea to use speak instead. Also, don't forget to use speak to talk about your language abilities too. Okay, so those are a few points about when to use speak and talk. If you have any questions or if you want to try to make an example sentence, give it a try in the comment section below this video. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And check us out at EnglishClass101.com for more stuff like this. Thanks very much for watching this episode, and we will see you again soon. Bye!